Hello, everyone, and welcome to this brief presentation into Birding 101, or Introduction into Birding, brought to you by Snug Harbor. My name is David Tolmack, and I am a Visitor Service Associate at Snug Harbor, and I am happy to lead you on this really cool journey. So let's begin. So what is birding? Birding is a recreational and a research activity where people actively look for and observe birds in their natural habitats. And one of the best things about birding is how inclusive it is. As you can see in these three pictures, birding attracts a wide array of people. It is a super fun activity for all members of the family and community to enjoy. What are the benefits of birding? So birding is fun. It gets the entire family out of the house. It involves everyone in nature. And after being quarantined, I think everyone needs that. It is great for researchers, especially when birders record their findings. And we're actually going to talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. It is a great way to learn about the ecosystem that birds live in. And it's a great way to learn about why it's necessary to protect birds. So what do you need to bird? Birding is not as inaccessible as it may seem at first. You really need binoculars. That's a very important tool that you're going to need when observing birds. And you want to make sure that you have that on hand when you go birding. You want to make sure that you are not squinting at a tree for 2.5 hours or however long your birding session is. And then you want a pen, a pencil, and a notebook. You want to take notes as you are birding so that when you go back and input all your findings into eBird, a naturalist, or Merlin, the three main birding apps, which again, we will go over later in the presentation, you're not recalling things from memory. You can refer to your notes. It's also great to have a journal in case you wanted to come back to the location if you saw a bird that was intriguing or maybe rare. You want to have a phone. A phone is a great resource, not only because you could call your birding buddies to brag after you see a scarlet tanager or other rare bird, but it's great to keep your location and it's great for you to get more details about the birding day, right? You want to know about the weather, you might want to jot that down. And then of course, it's great to have on hand in case of an emergency. You want to have a birding buddy with you, especially if it is your first time going into a specific location that you are not familiarized with. You definitely want a first aid kit for the same reason. You want that protection, you want that safety. And then of course you want a water bottle or a snack. That's just an added tool that you would want to have. So a big question is, how can I stay safe when birding? So again, having a fully charged phone on hand is great because you could call the authorities, you could call your emergency contacts in case of an emergency. Have a water bottle and possible snack on hand. You don't want to be dehydrated when out there. A big issue is having birders not find the specific animal that they want to enlarge with their binoculars first with their eyes and then lower the binoculars. I see a lot of people walking around trying to find the bird with their binoculars first and then unintentionally get blinded by the sun. So we want to be sure that that doesn't happen. We don't want any injuries happening on these bird walks. And of course, don't look at the sun. That is not a good idea. And you want to be sure that you are using your instruments efficiently and effectively. You don't want to play around with them and then get injured in the process. And then you want to be aware of your surroundings. So if you're going into a location, be sure to be able to get out of that location, know your entrance and exit points, and then just know what's around you for any sorts of emergencies. So what are some birding apps? So there are three that come to mind. A lot of birders use these. So we have iNaturalist, we have eBird, and we have Merlin. All of these are great resources, and they all have slightly different purposes. So iNaturalist, you can think of it as a social media platform where birders and other groups of ecological and environmental enthusiasts can upload pictures, and others can comment about what species they think it is. So this is a great way of engaging the entire community in your explorations of a species, or finding out and becoming the detective, so to speak, when you're finding out a species. eBird is a great way of keeping tabs on the species that you have seen. It's a great way of sending researchers data about what birds live in your neighborhood or around you. Merlin is another great resource, and Merlin has this really cool snazzy feature where you could take a picture of a bird that you are unsure of, or you could record a bird call, and it will tell you what birds fit that description, what birds sound the same, what birds look the same, and then you could go back to eBird and put in what you found. At the bottom, we have two lovely Canada geese that actually visit New York during winter, which is when this video is being made. So if you are going out birding during winter, keep an eye out for these. And next to it, to the right of it, you see this big map. And sometimes people wonder, how do researchers know birds' migratory patterns? Well, it is thanks to eBird. eBird and Merlin and iNaturalist, all these resources are things that scientists really do utilize. And based on community science events and community science participants, scientists will utilize that data to make these maps. And what better way to protect birds than to know where they travel, right? And this was brought to you by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, which runs eBird and Merlin. Another big question and possible myth is, when can I go birding? Can I only go birding during the summer, during the spring or fall, whenever it's nice out? And the answer is no. You can go out birding at any time throughout the year. It is great because you will see different birds at different times throughout the year. So for instance, if you're going out birding during the winter where it's a little cold, you're going to see canvasback and mallard. You're going to see Canada geese. You might see other types of waterfowl. They're all migrating south. So if we go back to this picture here, you can see that they're up in Canada during the summer months, and then they migrate down during the winter months. During the summer months, you'll see birds migrating from the south to the north. So you will see things like scarlet tanagers, which is the picture to the left, or black and white warblers. You might also see your year-round residents, so northern flickers, catbirds, cowbirds, and other birds like that are always a treat to see. So here are some cool birding tips, especially if you are a beginner or even if you're an advanced birder. These are some things that are great to know. You want to look for field marks in birds. So field marks are just distinctive features. And if you look to the right, you will see that there's a northern tree sparrow. That's the first picture, and a chipping sparrow. That's the second picture. And they look very similar. But if you look closely, and in the wild, you will have to, in the field rather, you will have to do this pretty quickly because they're birds. They're not gonna sit like statues and wait for you to identify them. You will see that they have slightly different beaks. The northern tree sparrow has a little bit of orange on its lower mandible, the lower part of the beak, while the chipping sparrow does not. They also have slightly different beak shapes and slightly different feather patterns. When doing this, you want to record your observations. So again, in a little notebook with a pen or pencil. And then you want to go home or a place with internet or a safe place like a car, and possibly look up these bird species. You could go and use Google, or you can use a bird guide. You want to remain as quiet as possible. You want to listen to all the bird calls, all the bird sounds that are being emitted by these animals. They're very quiet at times, and being as quiet and as still as possible is a great way of hearing them. And you want to ensure that you're not scaring the birds off. Birds are creatures like you and me, and sometimes when there's a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, birds don't want to be part of that, and they're going to fly away. When looking for specific species, try to do some research about their habitat before you go out birding. So for instance, if you're looking for red-winged blackbirds, they typically live in wetlands, marshes, and maybe around vernal pools. They don't live in grasslands. So if you're trying to go and see a red-winged blackbird in a grassland area, you might have some trouble finding them. And then of course, we want to leave the ecosystems undisturbed. We want to make sure that you aren't vandalizing anything. You're not leaving any trash behind for our little flying critters to ingest or be affected by. We want to make it welcoming for other birders as well. So that is a big thing. Another big question is, how can I attract birds to my backyard? So how can I attract wildlife in general? So planting native plants is a great way of getting another food source for birds, birds, insects, and other animals, including feeders. You want to have a food source for these birds. Birds are always hungry and they're always looking for another place to eat. And you want to have a bird bath. A bird bath might sound a little silly. Why would I need that in my backyard? But the reality is that not every bird has access to water, especially during the summer months. And a lot of birds do die of dehydration. So we want to have a bird bath there. And then this might cause mixed feelings, but we want to encourage for people not to mow grass or not to cut back on plants. Remember, birds are creatures that live in the wild. The wild is a messy place, so the messier, the better. And it also provides other places of hiding, which is really important for these birds. And you want to potentially have bird boxes or nest boxes so that the birds are there nesting throughout their season, and they're pretty much right next to the feeders. So that way you're able to see the birds more frequently. And then how can I support bird populations? And a big way is by turning off your light at night. And you might be asking yourself, why is this important? Well, a lot of birds, especially migrators, nocturnal migrators, like warblers, they migrate at night. So having your lights on in your house is fairly distracting to these guys. And we want to make sure that they're having an easy time getting from point A to point B. You want to support local botanical and avian centers, the facilities that are at the forefront of research where are benefiting birds by having native plants and gardens in the area for birds to come and be and have their population supported. We want to place feeders and bird baths either really close or really far from windows. So birds, as many people know, have a slight issue seeing glass. It's a bit of a evolutionary default. So we want to have bird feeders and bird baths really close to the windows, so within 3 feet, so that if a bird does crash into the window, they don't have enough speed and momentum to really inflict too much damage. Or Audubon, one of the notable organizations, recommends that you keep bird feeders or bird baths at least 30 feet away from your bird feeders if you're choosing to put them farther from your windows. That way they don't need to go near your windows. And then trying not to use pesticides is a major issue that people should be looking to resolve. Remember, pesticides are chemicals and they could inflict a lot of damage on bird populations, especially on insects, which is a food source for a lot of birds. So we want to keep that in mind. Just at the end of the presentation, if you have any more questions or if you wanted to find out more information, feel free to visit Snug Harbor's website, which is listed on the slide, or contact engagement@snugharbor.org. We wish everyone happy birding. And again, my name is David Tomac. I hope that you had fun listening to this very brief presentation, and I am really looking forward to see what you guys find in the wild.